Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs, and today I got a big treat for you guys. I know I just casted a Rip game on this channel not too long ago, but this match literally ended today, just a few hours ago, and it was so good that I just had to make a video about it right away. Because in this match, we get to see something that is very rare. We get to see the #1 rated player in the world go up against the #2 rated player in the world. Quite literally a world championship tier match. And it is Rip versus Lord Clefairy, two of the biggest fog monsters on the ladder at the moment. Now, Rip is a player that has been turning a lot of heads in the past few months because he just doesn't seem to lose to anyone. He is quite literally ripping his way through the competitive scene, and no one seems able to stand up to him. So when I saw this match, Rip versus Lord Clefairy, I knew it was going to be a good one. And we're going to be casting this today, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Rip, since last we saw him, he has risen another 15 rating points, which is just incredible. Like, you have to be so good to reach this level. It is insane. And furthermore, what is so funny about Rip is that his matches are very entertaining to watch. On the highest level of competitive play in Advanced Wars, there are many players who are quote-unquote kind of boring to watch because they're so safe. They literally just play super safe, and then they kind of like inch their opponents off the map. Rip is not like that. He has a very distinct, unique playstyle. This guy builds like 3 transport copters in a match. Like, it's absolutely crazy. He utilizes mechs and transports in a way that I just haven't seen done before. And it is such a unique playstyle, I believe it's going to shift the meta very soon when people start catching up and start to emulate his playstyle. Rip also loves playing Sami in tier 4 fog matches, which is something that you don't see a lot of. Voice of Akasha also had a love of Sami, I remember, but he doesn't usually play much fog, he usually plays standard. So it's very cool to see a player utilize Sami in tier 4 so much. Rip loves picking Sami, like in almost all of his tier 4 games, he picks Sami. And the matchup that we're going to be witnessing today is one of my favorites in tier 4. It's Sami versus Jess, and I love this matchup because these two COs are polar opposites. One is an infantry specialist with bad vehicles, another one is a vehicle specialist with bad infantry. So they have complete opposite playstyles, which leads to very dynamic and cool matches in my opinion. Now, Rip's opponent, Lord Clefairy, I haven't casted one of his matches before. I believe Deegis may have casted a few of his games, but he is absolutely no slouch. As you can see, he is a very highly rated player himself. I do believe this might be Rip's biggest challenge so far, unless you count Voice of Akasha, but that was not a fog match. Rip is, of course, most known for being amazing in fog, although he plays all modes. But when I saw this matchup, I immediately followed it, and I waited anxiously for it to finish because I knew this was going to be a good one. The map that they're playing on is one of my favorite fog maps of all time. It's called Stolen Eras, and it is such an interesting fog map because you see play almost at all corners of this map, which is the hallmarks of a good map. You have a really exposed center right here with shoals and some cities, which makes it very hard to attack into. You also got kind of like this, you got these 2 side areas right here with some capturable cities. So you usually see battles on 3 fronts in Stolen Eras, which is very nice. You got an airport all the way in the back, so battlecopters do take a little while to reach the center, although in Sami vs. Jess, you typically don't see a lot of battlecopters. Although they can be used. You also have this mountain right here, which makes it hard for vehicles to get into the center. The vehicles kind of have to take a bit of a roundabout path here, meaning that the reinforcements are a little bit delayed. Don't really know why they're... I think the pipe seams are actually a recently new addition. When I played this map, I don't believe there were pipe seams here, so this map has actually been changed a little bit. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I say we just jump into this match, shall we? It is gonna be a good one. Let's begin. So, Rip down in the right side in the red trunks. Lord Clefairy up here in the green trunks. And both players are, of course, going to go for their neutral base as soon as possible. Rip is going to go for that airport as well. And I did spoil, obviously, this match. Like, I've spoiled a little bit of this match by saying that this Rip focuses heavily on transports, but I want you just to, like, spectate the balls of this guy in action right here. The way Rip plays is so confident, and transports aren't usually utilized that much on the top level of competitive play, but Rip seems to have figured out something, and that is to just dominate with transports, and particularly mechs as Sami, and you'll see this. This is just going to be absolutely incredible. So, As both players goes for their bases, you can see Rip took his airport immediately, whereas Lord Clefairy waited a little bit to take his airports. And you'll see why Rip goes for that airport very, very quickly. Lord Clefairy opens up a tank, which is pretty standard against Sami. As a Just player, I like to open up recons myself, just go a bunch of recons, because Sami players are not that likely to spam tanks from the get-go. But Lord Clefairy goes for the safe tank option, which is fine. That is nothing wrong with that. And look at that. Rip opens up T-Copter immediately. I mean, the balls you have to do to open T-Copter against the 1700 MMR player is quite insane, because you are setting yourself back roughly a tank. So it's very hard, but you'll see Rip is not content with just one transport copter. Oh no, we'll see a lot more of those. So as Lord Clefairy moves out his infantry here, capturing the properties, moves out his tank, and builds a recon. So tank recon, that's a Jess opener if I ever saw one. The recon is scouting, the tank is punishing, and you can also use the recon to take out enemy infantry. Of course, Sami has the advantage of, even if her infantry gets attacked, she can still finalize the capture to just capture bonuses. But of course, the infantry being weak is poor for future engagements. So D6 rolls in, and let's see how Rip utilizes that transport copter. He moves it down, and he's going to probably pick up this infantry next turn, or the infantry that comes out of the base. And he builds a second T-Copter. He hasn't built a tank yet, and he's built a mech. And this is the thing about Rip that is so insane to watch. He builds so many mechs. He builds so many mechs and transport copters in his fog games, and it is incredible to watch. This requires so much skill to utilize because mechs are slow. You know, they only move 2. But with these T-Copters, and of course the fact that Sami gets that +1 copter movement, means that Rip is able to transport these mechs to the front lines immediately and use them to ward away vehicles. And you will see just how incredibly this guy moves his units. So as Lord Clefairy moves out with his recon and his tank here, he builds an artillery, which is also pretty standard. He actually base skips to get this artillery out, which is pretty rare, but it can happen. I'm guessing he just really wants to utilize that artillery. So Rip moves out, and now the T-Copter plays are beginning. So he moves out the infantry and the mech. And now he actually builds a tank, and he does have to build tanks. Like, even a Sami player needs a couple of tanks. Mostly as support units, though, which is kind of interesting. So Lord Clefairy moves out his recon, very good position for it, scouts a lot of units right here, keeps his tank close by, builds another tank and another artillery. Artillery are pretty good. Jess artillery are pretty decent as well, so it's important to build them, even in fog. 2 artillery is rare in fog, though. Artillery are usually better in standard than in fog, but it's interesting to see nonetheless. And I think Rip is setting up 2 more mechs to be transported here. Yes, that is exactly what he does. And another tank. Day 8 rolls in. Lord Clefairy moves in. Captures more of his neutral cities, moves in his artillery as well. Uses his recon to scout. He sees that Rip is going for the con tower. And builds 2 more tanks and an infantry. So we are kind of moving out of the early capture phase right now. Rip actually goes for the strike here on the recon, which is very aggressive, putting his tank on a road, which means that he's opening himself up for a counterattack. But this may look kind of silly, but look what he does with his transports. Boosting, sending his infantry forward, and boom, immediately guards the tank with a mech. Of course, he's still, I mean, just look at how he's covering his vehicles with his mechs right here. If Lord Clefairy attacks from here, he'll be attacked by the mech. If he attacks from up here with the tank, this mech will guard. So Rip is using T-Copters and mechs to guard his vehicles beautifully. So Lord Clefairy really doesn't want to attack here, and he doesn't really have that many units in the area anyway. It's kind of spread out. But Rip is immediately taking the center. Immediately, he's balling up his units in the center. And look at this beautiful play right here from Rip. Just guarding his tank beautifully from all areas with his mechs. 2 T-Copters. Lord Clefairy sees this, by the way. Rip is not shy about this. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll just show you my T-Copters. I don't care. Normally, you want to try and keep your transports hidden from your opponent as long as possible, because obviously showing your opponent that you have transports means that you are showing them that you don't have vehicles. But Rip is so damn confident in his play that he just doesn't care about it. It looks like Lord Clefairy is actually going to try to blast this pipe seam to try and get the city, which is probably pretty smart, because you blast open this pipe seam, you're actually opening up these two cities to be attacked. And it is not as easy to defend this as it may seem, because there are a lot more units coming from here than units going up here. So Lord Clefairy pulls back. He really doesn't want to go into this engagement. He builds Anti-Air because against Sami, the Anti-Air is needed. I mean, not only to counter the odd battlecopter, but also because, again, you gotta be careful about those infantry. But it's so hard to make good, cost-effective engagements against Sami when there's so many mechs on the board, because they're always going to be covering each other. Look at Rip, even saving his 1 HP infantry. No infantry left behind. And Sami just has such strong infantry engagements. And look at the shield. Look at this. I mean, this is just incredible. It is just incredible. Using the T-Copters to boost. Now comes the Battlecopter, which is probably pretty smart, and 2 more mechs immediately out of Rip. How many mechs are that right now? Like, it's absolutely incredible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mechs. I mean, I literally just made a video on my channel talking about how mech spamming doesn't work in Advanced Wars, and then in comes Rip, and I was like, are you sure about that? Now, of course, this is a problem with Jess right here. Even with a comm tower, 2 infantry, very unlikely to kill an infantry here because of her minus 10% firepower. This artillery, though, is doing some decent work, but it's also kind of out of position. Like, it's, yeah, Lord Clefairy is using this artillery right here to take the city, but he's kind of weak in the center here. Look at how Rip is just balling his units together in the center. It's going to be very hard for Lord Clefairy to attack into this. Day 11 rolls in. Rip moves in with his recons to see what he can see. Still need recons as Sami, very important to get that scouting information. And he just continues to apply so much pressure in the center right here. In comes the T-Copter with more mechs. This ball of doom is so hard to deal with for Lord Clefairy. What is he possibly going to do? Artillery and a second Battlecopter out of Rip. This forces Lord Clefairy to build a lot of Anti-Air and Battlecopters of his own. So Lord Clefairy is going to try and win on the sides right here. He has a tank and an artillery on the sides trying to get those cities. But it doesn't really matter if he takes a couple cities on the side if he forgoes his entire center. And keep in mind, HQs, they're not protected by black boats or anything like that. He needs to watch out for Victory March. Lord Clefairy really doesn't want a brawl here, because as Rip's power meter continues to build up, it just doesn't, like, if he pops Victory March, boom, HQ goes down immediately. So it is in Lord Clefairy's best interest to not take these engagements around his HQ. He wants to kind of push the conflict into the center so that Victory March doesn't threaten to just end this game. Because if Rip has enough forces here and Victory March comes in, he will find a way to grab the HQ. Unless Lord Clefairy like puts a mega tank on it, which he definitely will not be able to afford. So it looks like Clefairy is going to pick up a single property here, which is nice. It's a small win, but this ball of mechs, man, is just marching towards the center with insane purpose. And now Rip is slowly shifting his forces down south to try and attack these properties right here. In comes an Anti-Air and a third transport copter, ladies and gentlemen. Rip was like, nah, 2 T-Copters, not enough. I want a third T-Copter. He now has 3 T-Copters on the map, and he's going to use them to great effect. As day 12 rolls in, Lord Clefairy picking up some small infantry kills here, blasting his way through the pipe seam, which is nice. But he can't really challenge this blob of units right here, and he will lose these 2 properties if he doesn't do anything about it. He builds 2 tanks. And let's see what Rip decides to do right now. Rip is kind of spread into 2 right now. He has 2 forces, one in the south, one in the top north. And he actually decides, he surely knows there is an artillery here, and he's going to use his infantry to scout it and move in with the Battlecopter. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It will be possible for Lord Clefairy to take on this Battlecopter, but he'll lose his Untier in the process. And then there's another Battlecopter there too, so does it really matter? Trading a Battlecopter for an Untier isn't necessarily a good thing if you're trying to get rid of the Battlecopter. So another, you can see Rip continuing to utilize, again, putting the T-Copter here, getting ready to bring more mechs to the front lines. And look at the unit count lead that Rip has right now, 37 to 29. Because he keeps spamming infantry units. And it's actually put him quite ahead in terms of value, they're not that far apart. And Lord Clefairy is even ahead in the capture game. But Rip just has so many infantry units. Now, Lord Clefairy decides to trade his Anti-Air for the Battlecopter, which is fine. But again, you see how he has to skirt around this ball of units right here. He can't really engage, not safely. He needs some kind of power to engage, and there's just so many units here. So Rip takes out the Anti-Air over here. And now, Rip is immediately... I think he's going to start switching away from here. Again, using the T-Copters beautifully. Look at that. Even running out of fuel, so he'll need to pull these back for fuel on the airport, which I think he does intend to do. I mean, just this is like a beautiful dance of T-Copters and mechs, allowing Rip to transport his units around the battlefield. It is an absolute thing of beauty. And again, you know, Lord Clefairy is poking and prodding a little bit, but look, there are mechs literally everywhere covering his vehicles. Now, he is tanking up, which is good. That's definitely something you want to do against Sami. Medium tanks or even Neo tanks are great against her, because her mechs can't really deal with heavy vehicles. But in a game such as this, where you have around 20k income, it's very hard to justify building at least Neo tanks. Medium tanks, sure. But Neo tanks are difficult to build, especially when Rip is building so many Battlecopters. You're kind of forced to build Anti-Air, which means it's very hard to save up money for those heavy tanks. Now, Rip here is moving in, actually taking out a artillery, which is kind of beautiful. Killing the he's going to be able to kill that with an infantry, it's fine. And he's just taking little W's everywhere here, just picking up units every now and then. But not taking any, like, huge engagements. Of course, Lord Clefairy does have a superpower right now. But Rip's defenses are just so good. There isn't really much value that Lord Clefairy can get out of the superpower. He'll mostly be just striking infantry units at this point, which isn't that valuable. He can certainly pop it, but he decides to sit on his superpower instead, because I just don't think he believes he can get much out of it in his current state. He does get some nice shots, and he doesn't need to pop his powers to get those one-shots, which is nice. He's pushing Rip back a little bit here, but again, this blob of units right here, what can he do? What can he do? It's just crazy. Like, he can't do anything. And Rip has such a huge unit lead right now, 40 to 28. Doesn't matter that they're equally matched in terms of value. Rip just has that insane unit count lead. And even this 1 HP infantry can be used to flip a property once Victory March comes in, and Rip knows this. And in fact, the Victory March is very close. We might even... are we gonna see it? He pops it. He pops his Victory March, ladies and gentlemen. And let's see what he's able to do with it. Mech comes in, kills the tank. Oh, he goes for the kills instead of going for the properties. Oh my goodness. Doesn't do anything with this 1 HP infantry, decides to scout with it. And of course, Lord Clefairy has wisely put a tank on his HQ here. But Rip is more interested in going for kills than he is in going for captures, which is very interesting. I think he knows that if he can get a bigger unit count lead, he'll probably be okay. But look at all these units marching in. This is just absolutely insane to watch. Another property flips. Rip has 23 to 19 properties right now, which is incredible. So, and he flips another one, so it's 24 to 18. So now, Rip has a very comfortable income lead, and he doesn't really need to push anymore. He can just sit quietly and force Lord Clefairy to come to him. He's even moving away from this area because he knows Lord Clefairy has a sizable chunk of units right here. And he builds a Neo tank, which is exactly what you want to do when you're ahead in income. Just tank up, your opponent can't really deal with it. As day 16 comes in, what is Lord Clefairy going to do? He knows there's not that many units left here probably, so he starts to shift his forces. Still not popping his superpower because I don't believe he believes he can get much out of it. At this point, I probably would have popped it in desperation, but he's sitting on it, hoping to get a good counter push, which is probably the right thing to do. Day 17 rolls in, and I don't think Rip is going to give up on this push right now. I think he recognizes, oh my god, using those T-Copters to scout. T-Copters, by the way, 2 vision as opposed to most other transports 1, so they can even be used as like backup scouts if you need them to, which is so nice. And he's just continuing to pick off infantry units whenever he can see them, which is just so nice. Absolutely crazy play here by Rip. You love to see it. But he is also positioning himself somewhat defensively, because he knows that Lord Clefairy is probably going to pop his power right now, which is probably what's going to happen. So, let's see if Lord Clefairy is able to make a counter push right here. Still not popping his superpower? Oh, no, there we go. He pops it after taking the infantry engagement, which is kind of interesting. So here comes the overdrive. This needs to be huge. But there are just so many units here. This does seem like a bit of a desperation push to me, honestly. He's going for the mechs, which isn't necessarily bad, but he doesn't see with. Okay, yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, replay viewer kind of bugged out here. I'm not really sure what's going on. The Neo tank just got hidden behind the HQ for some reason. Kind of weird, but yeah. It'll probably fix itself once this turn is over with. So, honestly, it's a decent push. As you can see right now, Lord Clefairy has a 140k value to Rip's 117. So it's actually a pretty decent push, but Rip's unit lead is still so significant, and he also has that Neo tank. And the artillery shoots at the medium tank, which is devastating. In comes the recon, and now he actually pops his double time, because he knows he gotta keep the momentum up right now. And he still has so many mechs left. So many brutal mechs. Even takes out the tank with an infantry. Boom, bye-bye goes the anti-air. Look at all these beautiful mech engagements that Rip is hitting right now. It's so nice. His T-Copter's still doing a great job. This T-Copter is down to 8 fuel. It might crash soon. It probably will crash at some point. And day 18 rolls in, and Rip has completely flipped it around. Look at that, 147k value to Lord Clefairy's 91. And Rip still has 24 to 18 properties, by the way. So Lord Clefairy, he's poking a little bit, seeing what he can do. But he's probably realizing that this is not going to work. He's doing what he can here. As day 19 rolls in, and now it's time for Rip to deliver the coup de grace. Bablam. 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 He is having a field day. Clefairy has no response to that Neo tank. None whatsoever. There's nothing he can do. And we are seeing the fall of Clefairy. And at this point, I think Clefairy realizes he's lost. He's going to take a few more engagements right here. Just to salvage some of his pride. But then, ladies and gentlemen, he decides to throw in the towel. So that was insane. Rip's playstyle is so unique, man. I love 3 transport copters. 3 transport copters and just a boatload of mechs. And he positions them all beautifully, covering all of his vehicles. And not even using his victory march for that many captures. He's mostly like, he's content with just destroying his enemy's infantry count. And he knows he'll just win due to having more units than his opponent, which is so cool to see. It's just an entertaining player to watch too, is Rip. And I am so excited to see if anyone is going to be able to knock him off his pedestal. I believe he hasn't lost a game in a very long while. I don't, at the moment, I don't think there's anyone who can really beat him. When Lord Clefairy falls, and I believe Rip also recently beat Elagatua, which is another absolutely insane player. Can anyone beat this guy? we'll just have to see. We'll see how long the reign of Rip will last, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this, give it a like and a comment, and yeah, subscribe for more Advanced Wars content. My name is Mangs, and I will see you next time. Bush.